What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Arman Tsarukyan is being taught a lesson by UFC according to teammate. Following Arman Tsarukyan's late withdrawal from UFC 311, Dana White reported that the lightweight wouldn't be tapped for another title shot in his next outing. At the time, some analysts and fighters opined that the UFC wasn't thrilled with what had gone down, and now one of Tsarukyan's teammates has echoed that sentiment. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. After months of speculation as to if and when Tsarukyan would battle Islam Makhachev again, he was booked to face the champion at UFC 311 in January. But one day before the January 18th card, it was announced that Arman had pulled out due to a back injury. After the event, White didn't pile on Tsarukyan for withdrawing, but he did say that the contender would not be rebooked for a title fight next. Fast forward to today, and there's still no word on when and who Tsarukyan will fight next. Not only that, since UFC 311, Ilia Topuria has vacated the featherweight crown, and talk that he's going to battle the lightweight champion has spiked. Tsarukyan's teammate Edward Vartanian recently spoke with Usha Taika, and while doing so, he had this to say about Tsarukyan and his future. "I'm sure in the next 2 to 3 years, Arman will become a champion. This can happen this year or next year, but I think it will be a surprise. I'm also not surprised if Topuria will fight for the belt or the winner of the pair of Gaethje and Fiziev. So in this case, the UFC has a task like to teach Arman a lesson. As far as I know, Arman has already overcome his back issues and is training at full speed." This is interesting to hear but not surprising. As noted, when Arman pulled out of UFC 311, there was speculation that the UFC wasn't happy with what went down, prompting some talk that Tsarukyan's back issues may not have been super serious. But all that aside, who do you want to see Arman fight next? There's been some discussions about having him face Charles Oliveira again, who he beat via split decision in April of last year. But are you interested in seeing that rematch? Or would you prefer if the UFC went another route? Could we see him face the winner of Gaethje versus Fiziev? Tom Aspinall provides update on Jon Jones fight. The end of 2025's first quarter is right around the corner, and we're still waiting for word on when and if Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones are actually going to fight. Well, according to Aspinall, the holdup is solely on account of Bones and his team. As you know, for months now, there's been endless talk about whether Jones and Aspinall will fight. Aspinall has been driving hard for this scrap, while Jon Jones repeatedly dismissed the matchup. Finally, following Jones's win over Stipe Miocic in November, he did say he would be willing to fight Aspinall if the UFC offers you money. But here we are, several months later, and there's still no word on this fight. So in a recent video Aspinall shared out, he provided this update.
Where we're at right now is I have spoke to the UFC on multiple occasions about this fight. I'm chasing it up. I want the fight. Been on record and said that I want the fight. I've been on the phone with the UFC saying that I want the fight. When's it happening? I want the fight more than anyone. What is holding it up right now is his side. That's the truth of it. The UFC really want the fight to happen. They've told me that. This is, as I said, this is one of the biggest fights that can be made. Does he want to put himself in a position where he's comfortable enough financially to take the risk that he's taking to fight me?
Obviously, it goes without saying that it's a bit worrisome no fight has been signed yet, but also it's not surprising given Jones's track record with the UFC and the contractual squabbles they've had in the past. Dana White has repeatedly insisted that the promotion will get this fight done. What's also interesting is that in the same video, Aspinall said he's looking to fight, period, regardless of whether it's with Jones. Could we see the interim champion fight in the interim? And if so, against who? Leon Edwards wanted to fight Belal Muhammad. Jack Della Maddalena was moved from UFC London to UFC 315 for a title fight with Belal Muhammad, but as it turns out, Leon Edwards also asked the UFC about being moved to the May 10th card. Initially, JDM was scheduled to fight Edwards at the UFC's March 22nd card in England, but since top contender Shavkat Rakhmonov is apparently dealing with an injury, the UFC asked JDM to face the champion Muhammad at UFC 315. Now, Sean Brady has been tapped to fight Edwards in London, but recently, the former welterweight champion revealed he pushed for a rematch with Belal. A couple of weeks before, I was in talks with the UFC. I was trying to step in to fight Belal, but I knew they had sold London around me. So if they took me off the card and leave Jack on the card, let Jack headline London. But I have a new opponent, Sean Brady, so it should be good. It makes sense that the UFC wasn't too keen on moving Edwards from the UFC London main event, given that he lives in England and is a well-known name there. But you also have to wonder if the UFC was even interested in having Edwards fight Belal already, given Rocky has not fought since he dropped a one-sided decision to the champion just last July. But as Edwards also reported in the video clip, he's apparently been informed that the winner of his bout with Brady will fight for the belt next. So if that is the case, he or Brady could be sidelined for a while if Rakhmonov is able to fight sooner than later. Manel Kape gets called out for being a dirty fighter. Manel Kape recorded a pivotal victory at UFC Vegas 103 on Saturday night, but for many, Starboy's victory should have an asterisk behind it, on account of the fouls Kape committed during the scrap. The feared striker faced the surging Asu Almabayev in the card's headliner, and Kape went on to stop the fight with a series of punches in round 3. Immediately after the bout, which marked the first time in 17 fights that Almabayev had been defeated, Kape started calling for a title shot. But a lot of people were focusing on the face rakes and eye pokes Kape committed in rounds 2 and 3, the last of which went down not long before the fight ended. One of the people who was quick to light up Kape was his bitter rival Magomed Ankalaev. The former UFC flyweight posted this via social media. "Dirty fighter, popped on steroids, eye poked and didn't even stop. When I eye poked you, I stopped and I let you recover. I apologize for whatever happened between us and I thought it ended, but you still talking about me in every interview. Because I live in your head. I beat you not even in my prime and pull your pants down in front of the whole world, and you will be my son for rest of life." If you need a refresher, Kape was flagged for banned substances back in 2022, an elevated level of M3, but he was never suspended. But what went down in Saturday's fight certainly seems to be garnering much more attention. All that aside, it'll be interesting to see if the UFC does tap Kape to face the flyweight king, Alexandre Pantoja, next. Pantoja defeated him by unanimous decision back in 2021, and while speaking to the media after UFC Vegas 103, Kape was asked how and why a rematch with Pantoja would play out.
I'm in another dimension of the fight, and things being good. I'm in my timing. I'm being show. I'm in a flow state, and definitely with Pantoja, my style with him is gonna match very well. And I believe that I'm definitely gonna stop him.
Do you agree with Kape? And do you think he deserves a title shot, even though he's not far removed from his loss to Mokaev? What's interesting is that during the post-fight show, Pantoja was interviewed and UFC 316 appeared on the screen. The card is expected to take place on June 7th in Newark, New Jersey. Could we see Pantoja versus Kape 2 on the card? Movsar Evloev reacts to Alexander Volkanovski comments. Alexander Volkanovski has let it be known that if he reclaims the featherweight crown at UFC 314, he'll be calling for a scrap with Movsar Evloev. Well, not surprisingly, it hasn't taken long for the undefeated contender to respond. Volkanovski has been booked to fight Diego Lopez at the April 12th card, in a fight that will determine the new featherweight champ, in the wake of Ilia Topuria vacating the belt. Recently, Volk appeared on the Ariel Helwani show, and while discussing his plans for if and when he wins the belt, the star reported this: "Who better to fight against next than the fighter who got the better of my upcoming opponent? I think Movsar is still going to be, well, look what I'm planning on doing. Like, I'm telling you that I'm gonna go there and I'm winning the belt and I'll call him Movsar Evloev out, so he could probably just wait if he wants. I'm winning that title and I'll fight him. 3 months later, tell me the date that we can do it and I'll call the shots that night." If you forgot, Evloev faced Lopez back in May of 2023 and recorded a decision win. Since then, Lopez has gone on to win 5 straight fights, while Evloev has competed only twice, which could be why he's not fighting for the belt yet. Well, as noted, Volk's call out got back to Evloev, who proceeded to post this: "Alex Volkanovski, good luck for your next fight. I know you're gonna beat this guy. He's my chicken." So do you think Volkanovski will beat Lopez? And if so, do you want to see him battle Evloev next? Magomed Ankalaev sends a warning to Alex Pereira. We're less than 1 week away from UFC 313, and Magomed Ankalaev continues to fire verbal shots at Alex Pereira, or whoever is managing his social media accounts. After going undefeated in 13 straight fights, Ankalaev has been tapped to face Poatan on March 8th. It's been a long road for the Dagestani light heavyweight. Case in point, this time last year, there was plenty of buzz about Ankalaev fighting for the title next, as he wasn't long removed from his KO win over Johnny Walker in January. But ultimately, Pereira would go on to face and stop Jamal Hill, Yuri Prohaska, and Khalil Roundtree instead. Meanwhile, Ankalaev was not called for a title shot until well after his recorded decision win over Alexander Rakic in October. Well, due to this long road, Ankalaev has been taking pokes at Pereira via social media for months. Now, with UFC 313 almost here, the decorated fighter hasn't let up. Training camp's finished. I'm ready for war Saturday night. I will change this guy's face. UFC 313, I'm looking for a finish from the first minute. Shama is a man walking. I'm going to drown this man. Some might point out that there's a bit of discrepancy here in terms of the warning shots. In the first one, Ankalaev, or again, whoever wrote the post, says he's hunting for a quick stoppage. In the second, he alludes to drowning Pereira, which typically infers a protracted, drawn-out battle. Most would likely guess that that points to Ankalaev trying to take Pereira down, but how do you see this fight playing out? And do you believe that he'll be able to deliver on all the warnings that he's been sending Pereira's way over the preceding months? Magomed Ankalaev came out in an interview saying he didn't want to fight during Ramadan and insinuated that the UFC essentially forced him to take the fight because they didn't have any championship fights available for March. Magomed said this during an interview with Sport 24. Of course, fighting during Ramadan is a problem, but we had no other choice because UFC 313 was left without a main event. I think it's not Alex's wish, it's the UFC decided this way. Ahead of their fight this week, Alex Pereira stepped on the scale last night and showed he is currently weighing at 103.2 kilos or 227.5 pounds. The MMA community goes off on Alex Pereira. The MMA community is going off on Alex Pereira after he called out Magomed Ankalaev to a bet for $200,000 to a charity. The issue is, Magomed is Muslim and betting is not only against their religion. Alex Pereira is asking him to bet money during Ramadan, which is why the community is going after Alex Pereira. They feel like Alex Pereira knows Magomed isn't allowed to bet money this month, so he purposefully made this bet when he has never done that when any past opponents. Here's what the community had to say. Asking a Muslim to bet during Ramadan, which is haram? What an idiot. Why is he asking Ank, a Muslim, to bet, especially during Ramadan? I just give the money. If you want, Ank is probably going to do zakat donations regardless for Ramadan. Betting is haram even if it's for a good cause. You never do things like this anyway. Seems like nervous energy. Relax, brother. Betting during Ramadan, isn't it bad enough you accept it during fasting? Charity is standard anyway, lol. Suddenly Alex making his opponents bet money against him? Where was this energy for Hill, Yuri, not even Adesanya? On top of that, Magomed is Muslim, actively in Ramadan, and it's haram to bet. Alex is exuding nervous energy. You're making a Muslim bet during Ramadan, could you stoop any lower? Magomed reacted to Alex Pereira by saying, Salam alaikum, we will answer tomorrow, Ramadan Mubarak. What do you guys think about the situation? Let us know down in the comment section below.